everyone, it's Tara. Welcome back to my channel, Tara Talks Books, where we talk everything bookish. So today I'm going to be doing a wrap-up. This one is actually going to cover 3 months, so September, October, and November. I got behind on my wrap-up, so I figured I'd put them all into one. Starting off in September, the first book is The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez. This is a contemporary romance. And I ended up giving this one a 4 stars. So this follows Kristen and Josh. They end up meeting because Josh is the best man in Kristen's best friend's wedding and recently moved into town. We know that Kristen has to have a medical procedure done that will make it impossible for her to have children. As her and Josh become closer acquainted, she realizes it would never work between them because he wants a large family. So I really liked this one. I liked their meet cute. I loved that they developed a friendship that led to more. This book took you through a lot of emotions, and I really enjoyed that Kristen and Josh were silly and playful in their relationship. I thought that was cute. I also really loved their banter. I really enjoyed Sloane and Kristen's friendship as well as Josh and Tyler's too. The tropes in this one are friends to lovers, and there are some trigger warnings for death and infertility. So there are probably more that I'm missing, so if things affect you, go ahead and check your trigger warnings on Goodreads as well. The next one I read is No Rest for the Wicked by Lauren Smith. This is a historical romance. And this follows Roberta, and the ship she was sailing on was attacked by pirates. She disguises herself as a cabin boy and is taken captive by those pirates. So Captain Dominic Gray sees through her disguise and gives her 2 choices: share his bed and live life on the ship as a lady, or sleep on the floor and remain on the ship as a cabin boy. And of course, she refuses to be seduced by a pirate and remains a cabin boy. But the more that they spend time together, the more that they realize this attraction may be too much to resist. And it goes from there. I loved this pirate romance set on the high seas. It was fun and action-packed without detracting from the lovely romance that was in it. I really loved that they both had this love for the ocean. And one of the quotes is, "She wants to be here. She wants this life of freedom as much as I do." And he's talking about being on the ship and the ocean. And I'm just oh, that's so stunning. Also just enjoyed that Roberta is a fierce heroine, and Dominic is a damaged or tortured hero with a dark past, but really cares for his crew. So this has obviously tropes of captor-captive, forced proximity. And I will leave in the cards above the live show for this one, because this was one of our picks for Tea and Biscuits with Tara and Bea, our historical romance book club. And we actually had Lauren Smith on to kind of talk about this book and a lot of her backlist. And it was a very intriguing live show. So I'll leave that if you want to check it out. The next one I have is Never Blow a Kiss by Lindsay Lovis, and this is another historical romance. So this one follows Emily, and she's a governess with a dark past. She is newly recruited into a secret network of governess spies that spy on the ton. Then Zach is an ex-soldier turned railroad magnate. He also hunts killers for the Metropolitan Police. So they both end up kind of in the same place because she's a governess, and he's at a ball that her wards are at. Yeah, they actually end up kind of teaming up together to look for clues for a killer on the loose. But as they kind of grow closer, Emily's secret could destroy them both. This was such a fun book. I ended up giving it a 5 star. I really loved the unique premise of it. I love the balance between the romance and the mystery subplot. Emily and Zach's chemistry was sizzling from the moment they met. So many times while reading this book, I found myself laughing out loud. I love the idea of a secret society of governess spies spying on the ton. It's such a unique concept to me. I love that Emily also is very streetwise, and I really enjoyed that she was of the working class, because I feel that you don't get that a lot in historical romances, and so I really enjoyed that. I loved their meet cute. It just shows Emily's daringness. So this is an excellent read. Definitely check it out if you haven't already. Again, I gave it a 5 star. It was great. The next book I read is The September House by Carissa Orlando. This is a mystery thriller book. So this one follows Margaret and her husband Hal, and they finally bought their dream home for a bargain. However, they begin to realize that the house is haunted, and every September, the walls drip blood, ghosts appear, and all of them fear what's inside the basement. So Margaret and Hal end up staying, but after 4 years, Hal is fed up and just can't take it anymore and leaves abruptly. Their daughter Catherine is like concerned because he's not answering her phone calls, and she knows nothing like about the hauntings and is coming to the house during the month of September to look for Hal. So Margaret kind of has to keep her away from like the ghosts and the bleeding walls. I actually really enjoyed this Haunted House book. It definitely started off more humorous or satirical, but became much more intense or deep within its themes. I really liked how the author wove events that were happening with the house and like life moments that you hear from like Margaret and Hal's past and even Catherine's. And it became like this, it made it feel very cyclical. What I will say with this one is check your trigger warnings. There definitely is quite a few. Death, abuse are two of them. But there's obviously murder as well. Some of the ghosts were unalived pretty gruesomely. And then definitely check your trigger warnings for this one if things affect you. But I overall enjoyed this mystery thriller. And the last one I read in the month of September was Red at the Bone by Jacqueline Woodson. This is like a historical fiction. I ended up giving this one a 4-star. So this has a bit of like a multi-generational or dual timeline feel to it, but it does follow a family. And the book begins in 2001, and it's 16-year-old Melody's coming of age ceremony at her grandparents' house. Everybody watches as Melody wears a special custom-made dress that was meant for Melody's mother 16 years prior, but went unworn, and her coming of age never ended up taking place because she was obviously pregnant with Melody. It goes back and forth in the timeline between Melody, her parents, and even her grandparents, and it's basically just a story of this family, but you only get snippets. It's very short. But what I will say is that Jacqueline Woodson is just so good at weaving a story together beautifully in just such a short amount of time. I loved how she highlights that decisions made by those who came before us affect who we are now. She shows that through the generations in the family. She tackles difficult topics and themes seamlessly. And I didn't expect that ending. I didn't see it coming. Some of the topics in it are like teen pregnancy, racism, gentrification, and death. And like I said, for such a tiny book, she packs a punch in it. So next I have all the books that I read in October. The first one is the Happy Ever After playlist by Abby Jimenez. This was part of our Abby Jimenez read-along. So was The Friend Zone that I talked about previously. But this one is a contemporary romance. And this is the second book, obviously, in the Friend Zone series. It takes place 2 years later after Sloane has lost her fiancé. She is struggling to get her life back after this monumental loss. She is doing some errands one day, and this dog literally drops into her lap in through like her sunroof. Her newfound dog ends up bringing her a bit back to like herself. Weeks after like unanswered texts, Tucker's owner reaches out and wants him back because he didn't even know that Tucker was missing, and he left him with a sitter that was obviously irresponsible, but he is a musician touring in Australia and can't get there until later. So she agrees to kind of keep him for the time being. So they end up like texting back and forth, and then texts turn into phone calls, and they begin this connection. But with his music career on the rise, will he stick around? Because feelings begin to come about. I loved that this showed Sloane's grief and that Tucker helped her feel like some semblance of herself, and Tucker is the dog. Her taking care of him kind of brought her back to life because she was just going through motions in the book. So I loved seeing that and just like how deep that grief was. I enjoyed how they built their relationship via text and phone calls, and it was very slow burn in that sense. And I'll tell you what, Abby Jimenez will just make you feel all the emotions in her books, and she did that one in this one too. I ended up giving this one a 4-star. I did really enjoy it. Next one I read is A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. This is a mystery thriller book, and I ended up giving this one a 4-star. This follows Chloe, and Chloe was 12 years old when 6 teenage girls went missing from her small Louisiana town. Chloe's father ends up being arrested as a serial killer and put in prison. Her family is left to grapple with that truth. The story picks up 20 years later, and Chloe is a psychologist in private practice in like Baton Rouge. Then a teenage girl goes missing, and then another, and Chloe starts to see parallels from that summer all those years ago. Is she paranoid, or is she about to find another killer? And it obviously takes off from that point. I really enjoyed the premise of this story. It definitely has some interesting twists and turns, but what kept it at a 4-star for me is the use of drugs and alcohol to make the main character unreliable. It's just my own little pet peeve in mystery thrillers is when they will do that. But like I said, overall, it's a solid mystery thriller, and I did end up giving it a 4-star. The next one I have is The Haunting of a Duke by Chastity Bolin. This is a historical romance, and I did end up giving this one a 4-star. This is a dark historical romance with some paranormal aspects. Emmy Walters has been invited to a house party to investigate whether the Duke, Reese Bramall, murdered his wife years ago. Emmy has a special ability and is able to commune with spirits. This leaves her unpopular, obviously, in society because she's obviously different. So Reese is suspicious of Emmy's gifts, but when Emmy's life is put in danger, Reese becomes her protector. I enjoyed this one, but it definitely check your trigger warnings. This one does have some very dark themes in it, so if that's not something you can handle, I suggest maybe skipping and reading another Chastity Bolin, because this one, like I said, it goes there. I really enjoyed the ghost and spirits aspect of this and the romance. I really think that, like I said, the romance was very prominent, and then the side plot did not overpower it. I liked like Emmy and Reese, his characters, as well as like his best friend. He provided some of the comic relief by teasing Reese, which I really enjoyed. The villains here felt very like real and extremely unlikable in that sense. Like there are some horrible villains in this book, because obviously there are ghosts in the castle that she can see. The things that the villains do are horrible. So like I said, check your trigger warnings. If you can handle dark romance, this might be for you. If you cannot, it probably is not. But again, this was actually a book we picked for Tea and Biscuits with Tara and Bea for our October book pick, and we actually have a live show with Chastity Bolin on it as well. Next one I read for the Sweeney Readers Book Club pick for October, and that was Be Still My Heart by Emily McIntyre and Sav R. Miller. This is a romantic suspense, and I ended up giving this one like a 3-star. This takes place on Skelm Island in Maine, and corpses start showing up in the water with cryptic messages. They end up showing up in Lincoln's crab traps, and homicide detective Sloan is called in to assist with the investigation. Sloan and Lincoln are kind of forced to work together as secrets come to light, and it goes from there. This one has the Grumpy Sunshine trope in it. This was just an okay romantic suspense for me, which is why I gave it a 3-star. The next one I have is The Wedding Witch by Erin Sterling. This is a paranormal romance. I ended up giving this one a 4-star. So this is actually the 3rd book in the X-Hex series, and this follows Bowen Penhallow, who is a bit of a loner and studies ancient magic in a reclusive mountaintop in Wales. His friend is a ghost, and he asks him to attend like a Yuletide wedding for him. And then Tamsin is not a witch, but she is able to procure and sell magical items. Bowen asks her to work for him exclusively, but she ends up getting a job at Tywell House where the wedding is happening, and she's tasked to find an artifact, but then a mishap occurs, and her and Bowen end up in the past. So it has a bit of a time travel aspect to it. I did kind of miss the small town of Graves Glen, which was like the backdrop of the first 2 books in the series, but I really did enjoy the time travel aspect. of this one, and the bit of like haunted house that you get in the beginning too. That was kind of a fun aspect. This definitely is atmospheric and perfect read, more so for winter than it is for Halloween, because it goes into like more Christmas because it follows the Yuletide. Definitely a cute witchy romance with a bit of spice, and it has some fun tropes. It has one bed, opposites attract, and some mutual pining. The next books are for November. The next one I have is Life's Too Short by Abby Jimenez. This is a contemporary romance, and I ended up giving this one a 5-star. This follows Vanessa, and she is a travel vlogger and lives life to the fullest because her mother and sister both passed away before the age of 30. However, her half-sister leaves Vanessa with custody of her niece, and one night the baby is being fussy and Adrian helps out, which begins this emotional, laugh out loud, slow burn romance. I just loved this. This deals with heavy topics, but Abby Jimenez is like able to make it feel lighthearted as well and not too much like overly emotional in a sense, even though it's dealing with harder themes. This definitely has found family tropes. Again, I gave it a 5-star, absolutely loved it. This was part of the Abby Jimenez read along that we did, and I can leave the live show linked in the cards above if you'd like to check out all of our thoughts on this one. The next book I read is an arc that I got in for November, and that one is The Beast Takes a Bride by Julie Ann Long, and it is a historical romance. I ended up giving this one a 5-star. I absolutely loved it so much. Alexandra and Magnus have been married but separated for the past 5 years due to a betrayal. They are reunited because Alexandra finds herself in the middle of a scandal, and Magnus gives Alexandria a directive: confront the ton together, help their reputations, and then he will banish her to another country. However, while they are carrying out their directive, feelings and passion bubble up. I love this one. It's a marriage in trouble, second chance romance, and I'm just telling you, it was amazing. I loved all the guests at the Grand Palace on the Thames. They definitely added to the story as well as like the setting itself. I laughed out loud. I swooned at the characters. They are both two flawed characters who come together and find each other in this second chance romance. I love how they are both nervous to put their feelings out there, but ultimately do. I want to read all of the Palace of the Rogues series by Julie Ann Long. I really want to dive into her backlist because this one was just so amazing. The next one I have is The Next Best Fling by Gabriela Gamez, and this is a contemporary romance, and I did end up giving this one a 4-star. This follows Marcella, and she's been in love with her best friend for years, but he gets engaged to his longtime girlfriend, and she knows it's time to move on. At the engagement, she overhears Theo, her best friend's brother, about to confess his feelings for his brother's fiance. She talks him down and lets him stay the night at her house. Well, in the morning, everyone assumes that they got together, so why not let the ruse keep going, since both of them need a distraction from their feelings for other people. It was definitely a messy plot, but so sweet, and the characters had such good chemistry. I loved that Marcella was a librarian. I thought that was a unique thing in a book. The tropes in this one are fake dating and a curvy heroine. Next, I read Perfectly Wicked by Lindsay Lovis, and this is a paranormal romance, and I did end up giving this one a 4-star. This follows Holly, and she and her sisters own an orchard that serves the best apple cider in Maine because of its magical secret ingredient. However, the orchard's in trouble financially, and in comes Connor Grimm. He wants to film an episode of his show at Wicked Good Apple's orchard because of rumors that something supernatural is happening at the orchard. Obviously, she needs to keep the supernatural secret, and obviously he wants to expose it, so they're kind of on opposing sides, obviously. But this was such a fun witchy romance with a bit of a twist. I loved the sisters and that it was set on an apple orchard. I enjoyed Connor and Holly's chemistry, and I love that Holly had like a hedgehog as a pet. I thought that was cute. The last book I read in November, and the last book for this video, is This Earl of Mine by Kate Bateman, and this is a historical romance. I did end up giving this one a 4-star. So this follows Georgiana, who is sick of men who only want to marry her for her money. Her cousin tries to force her into marriage to gain control of her fortune. So she devises a plan to marry a criminal about to be executed so she can be widowed. Ben Wild is undercover in Newgate prison with like the Bow Street runners. And Georgie doesn't realize that he is an earl when she marries him. Much to her surprise, she sees him at a society gathering and their ruse goes from there. This was such a fun premise and I enjoyed Georgiana and Ben's romance. It has some action in it that was fun as well. So one of the steamy scenes at the end has a very unique setting and I thought that was fun. So this one is, the tropes in this one is a fake courtship. So this is our November pick for Tea and Biscuits with Tara and Bea, our historical romance book club. We actually had Kate Bateman, and I'll leave that video either linked in the cards or in the description box below so you guys can check it out if you want to see all the fun and interesting things, one about this book and about Kate Bateman. So those are all the books that I read during the months of September through October. Let me know if you've read any of these and your thoughts below. And if you made it to the end and you just want to leave me an emoji, go ahead and leave me a book stack emoji. Like and subscribe if you'd like to. Bye!